The first time I heard those words, "That's my son's inheritance," I was standing on a ladder, brushing boiled linseed oil across a hand-hewn beam, older than my great-grandfather. Down by the driveway stood the HOA president, arms crossed, lips thin, clipboard in hand like a weapon. She was claiming the 150-year-old cabin mansion I'd just restored didn't belong to me at all. I still remember the light that morning, cold and clear. The scent of pine sap drifting through the air. My father's flag creased from years in its triangle. Case hung proudly for the first time on that porch. It moved with the mountain breeze, almost like it was breathing. When I told her to step back, she took a step closer. And then, louder this time, she said it again. "That's my son's inheritance. I bought this place at a quiet county tax auction. No one else bothered to show up for except me and a soft-spoken realtor who liked old paper. Tucked deep in a narrow valley where the road turns to gravel, the cabin had been standing for nearly a century and a half, built on a stone foundation that had outlasted 3 logging companies and a forgotten rail spur. The first time I walked, inside, wind whispered through broken window panes, and the smell of dust and history filled the air. Mice had made a home in the old bread oven, but beneath the decave, the bones were strong. Chestnut beams, walnut floors, twin chimneys like bookends on a story that hadn't been told in years. I placed my palm on the soot-dark mantle and felt something warm, not real heat, but presence. Like the house was waiting for someone to care again. The HOA didn't exist when this home was born. It grew up around it, modern cul-de-sacs, spreading over old pasture land. Like ivy strangling its own brick. The president, her name was Judith, had that sharp confidence people get when they're used to winning small battles. First came the letters, then the friendly visits. Then came the official notices, sealed in plastic sleeves like raincoats for threats. The exterior color violates neighborhood uniformity. The roof produces unacceptable glare. No historical flags without board approval. That last one made me laugh. Show me the bylaw that outranks my father's folded flag. Show me the ink that replaces the blood that earned it. Judith claimed her family had some traditional claim to this land. Said her grandfather split rails here a century ago. Maybe he did? But she said it like ownership was inherited through gossip. She used the word inheritance like a leash, like it could reach across decades. Across my paperwork, across stamped county ledgers, and wrap itself around the deed in my safe. I told her the truth. The place had been abandoned for decades. Taxes unpaid. The county listed it like a stray dog. I showed up. I signed the papers. I did the work. My palms split open, pulling nails from century-old boards. And Judith. Kind of smirk you see on people who've never sanded a floor or set a stone with their own hands. Then came the compliance inspection. She arrived with 2 board members, a young man holding a phone like he was filming for a reality show. They scrutinized every inch my handmade shutters, the strap hinges I'd found at a farm auction. Even the old schoolhouse bell I'd hung on the back porch because I loved its sound at dusk. Non-uniform accessory. Unauthorized structure. They wrote everything down like my memories were violations, and when she saw my father's flag, she circled it with her pen as if it were a stain. "You'll need approval for that," she said. Something inside me went still. Not anger, just a cold, quiet focus. The kind my father had when someone crossed a line. I invited them inside. Into that kitchen that still smelled faintly of wood smoke and old winters. I laid out my folder on the table like a battle plan deed, title insurance, the county auction records, even a letter from the Historical Society blessing my restoration. I added before and after photos, rotting sills replaced. Chimneys were pointed, paint matched to the original shade. Judith didn't look at a single page. She just stared through me like a cat watching a bird behind glass. That night, the bell clapper disappeared. The bell hung there, silent as a tombstone. I found the clapper tossed into the rhododendrons like a broken arm, standing there in the dark. Holding that piece of iron, I realized this wasn't about rules anymore. This was about respect. It's about keeping a promise to a place forgotten by everyone else. I called the sheriff, a classmate from high school. He drove up, looked around, and nodded. "No cameras, no witnesses," he said. Then his tone softened. Judith filed something at the clerk's office, an equitable interest claim for her son. He shook his head. They're not trying to win. They're trying to wear you down. Then he smiled a little. They don't know you, do they? A week later, the HOA called a special meeting. It was announced like a weather alert, illegal restoration, and unauthorized occupancy of historic structure. They held it at their shiny clubhouse. The one with matching chairs and perfect lawns, where every backyard looks cloned. I came armed documents, the Historical Society's president, and that old bell clapper like a prop when I speak. I sat through 3 neighbors complaining about my loud truck, and one man saying my porch lanterns attracted the wrong kind of people. I bit my tongue, breathed twice, then stood up. I spoke the way my father taught me, plain, steady, and true. I told them about the hours I spent sanding, the blisters, the nights patching old plaster by lamplight. I held up that bell clapper and said, "If you think this place is abandoned, explain the blisters on my hands. And if you think your rules outrank this house's history, listen to the sound you silenced." Then I set the clapper on the podium. The room went quiet. The Historical Society presidenta, Sharpeed. Woman in her 70s stood next. She read a formal letter recognizing the cabin as a protected historical structure. She spoke slowly, so even Judith could follow, that any interference would violate county heritage goals and likely draw legal scrutiny. Then she said something I'll never forget. Heritage isn't personal property. It's a public trust. And this man has honored it. Every word hit like a hammer finding home. Judith froze, jaw, tight eyes blank. After a tense pause, she muttered that they'd table the matter for legal review. It sounded like a retreat. But when I got home that night, there was a new notice taped to my gate. Cease exterior work immediately. Daily fines to accrue. I took it down quietly, folded it once, slipped it into my pocket, and called my lawyer. He's not the fancy kind, just a steady man who loves fishing and case law. He filed for an injunction the next morning. Then he added a slander of title claim for their inheritance stunt. 2 weeks later came the hearing. The courtroom smelled like paper and coffee. My attorney laid everything out. Deeds, tax records, ICE own bylaws proving they had no jurisdiction over historic properties predating the association. Then he showed the judge a photo of the cabin, my father's flag waving proud on the porch. He looked at the bench and said, "If there's a uniform worthy of respect, Your Honor, it's this one not beige paint." It was a little theatrical, but it worked. The judge didn't take long. He called their actions overreach and their title claim frivolous. He ordered them to remove all fines, withdraw their claim, and stay in their lane. Judith sat deflated beside her lawyer, like a balloon after the parade. When I stepped outside, something unexpected happened. Neighbors I'd never met shook my hand. A retired teacher pressed a pie tin into my palms. A young couple told me their twins loved hearing the bell ring at dusk. All I could do was nod. My throat wouldn't let me talk. I drove home slow, watching my own tire tracks curl along the gravel road. The cabin stood waiting, quiet, proud, and alive again. I climbed the porch steps, ran my fingers along that oiled beam, and felt the grain like a heartbeat. Then I walked out back, placed my hand on the bell, gave it one gentle ring. The sound rolled through the valley like a ribbon of light. The lake beyond the pasture held the evening sun like glass, and for the first time in years I felt calm, not because I'd won, but because something older than all of us, older than Judith, older than bylaws, had been honored. A promise kept between a man and his land. Heritage isn't a trophy you win, it's a duty you keep. Have you ever faced an HOA like this? Share your story in the comments. I read every one. And if you believe some fights are worth having, hit subscribe. And let's stand up together.